The night was quiet, wrapped in a false sense of peace, the kind that settles deep in your bones when you think your world is safe. The soft hum of jazz poured from the speakers, mixing with the crisp evening air. I sat on the patio, the weight of a long workday melting away as I swirled the amber liquid in my glass. The ice clinked against the crystal, a soft, familiar sound. Through the large glass doors, I could see my wife, Ellie, moving through the kitchen with practiced ease, laughing at something Jack, my best friend, had said. Her golden brown hair swayed as she turned, eyes glimmering with amusement. Jack leaned against the counter, his beer bottle dangling from his fingers, a cocky grin stretched across his face. The two most important people in my life, the ones I trusted more than anyone. Ellie caught my gaze and stepped outside, the cool night air barely making her flinch. "Hey, babe," she said, her voice smooth as honey. "Come inside. We're about to start the movie." Jack followed, stepping into the doorway with his signature grin. "Yeah, man, don't ghost us like last time. You always disappear when we do movie nights. Feels like you don't love us anymore." I chuckled, shaking my head as I took another sip of my whiskey. All right, let's see what you guys picked." Ellie curled up next to me as soon as I sat down, resting her head on my shoulder. She smelled like vanilla and something delicate, something uniquely her. Jack flopped onto the other end of the couch, stretching out like he owned the place. I had never thought much of it. After all, we had been best friends since college. He was practically family. The movie started, some action thriller Ellie had chosen, though I barely paid attention. My kids were upstairs, their muffled voices occasionally floating down as they gamed or scrolled through their phones. Life felt solid. At one point, Ellie reached for my hand, absent-mindedly tracing circles on my palm. It was a simple gesture, intimate, something she had always done, a habit formed over 18 years of marriage. But now, looking back, I wonder if she was trying to quiet the guilt. Halfway through the movie, Ellie got up to grab a drink. Jack's eyes followed her as she moved, just for a second, too quick for most to notice. But I saw it, a flicker of something possessive, admiring. I shrugged it off. I was being paranoid. "Man," Jack said, stretching his arms behind his head. "You ever think about how lucky you are?" I raised a brow, amused. "Oh, do tell." Jack smirked, taking a sip of his beer. "Come on, bro. You've got the house, the business, a wife who actually puts up with your crap, and kids who, well, okay, maybe they're brats sometimes, but still." He chuckled. "Some guys would kill for what you have." I grinned, shaking my head. Yeah, I worked my ass off for this life. You know, it didn't just fall into my lap." Jack raised his beer. "And yet, you still find time to humble brag." I laughed. It was an easy, genuine laugh. Because I believed him. I believed that my life was something to be envied. Ellie returned, handing me another glass of whiskey before reclaiming her spot beside me. She kissed my cheek, lingering just a second longer than usual. "I love you," she whispered. I kissed her forehead, smiling. "Love you too, babe." Another lie. Another illusion. I didn't know it then, but my world was already unraveling. After the movie, Jack left, tossing a lazy wave over his shoulder. "All right, you lovebirds, I'm out. Don't have too much fun without me." Ellie rolled her eyes. "Good night, Jack." I clapped him on the back as I walked him to the door. "See you tomorrow, man." He smirked. "Always." I locked up, turning back to see Ellie watching me, her expression unreadable. I walked over, wrapping my arms around her waist. "Tired?" She sighed, leaning into me. "Yeah, long day." I kissed the top of her head, feeling her melt into me. "Let's head up then." We climbed the stairs together, slipping into the bedroom, into the life we had built, into the perfect lie. As Ellie curled up beside me that night, her breathing soft and steady, I felt nothing but peace. No suspicions, no doubts, just love. But love built on deception is nothing more than a house of cards, waiting for the wind to blow. And soon, the storm would come. The night air was crisp as I drove home, my fingers drumming idly against the steering wheel. I wasn't supposed to be heading back. I left my phone at the office and had debated just leaving it until morning. But something pulled me back, a nagging feeling that I needed to retrieve it. In hindsight, I should have ignored that instinct. Or maybe, just maybe, fate had finally decided to let me see the truth. As I pulled into the driveway, the house stood there, silent and still under the soft glow of the porch light. It was my home, the place I had built with Ellie, the place where I had raised what I thought were my children. My kingdom, my sanctuary. I stepped out of the car, closing the door quietly behind me. The night was calm, only the distant chirping of crickets breaking the silence. My feet carried me to the front door, and as I reached for the handle, I paused. Laughter. Not just any laughter, there's... Jack's deep chuckle echoed through the hallway, followed by Ellie's soft giggle. A frown creased my brow. They were still here? I had left hours ago, assuming they'd finished their usual movie night and Jack would head home. But no, they were still here alone in my house. Something felt off. I pushed the door open silently, stepping inside with the caution of an intruder in his own home. The living room was dimly lit, a few glasses and an empty wine bottle sitting on the coffee table. The air smelled faintly of Ellie's perfume, mixed with something else. Something wrong. Then I heard it. Jack's voice, dripping with amusement. It's nuts he trusts you with everything. House, business, even me. Ellie giggled, her tone playful, yet full of something sinister. I know, and he still thinks he's the man. I froze. The weight of those words slammed into me like a freight train. My grip on my keys tightened, the sharp metal edges pressing into my palm. My pulse pounded in my ears, my breath shallow. A part of me, some naive, desperate part, wanted to believe it was just harmless banter. A joke. Then Jack spoke again. Bro has no clue I'm the real dad. What a loser. Raising my kids, paying my bills. Man, I should send him a thank you card. The room spun. A cold, sinking feeling spread through my chest, making it hard to breathe. No. This wasn't happening. 18 years. 18 goddamn years. Every memory of my children, flashed through my mind. The first steps, the bedtime stories, the scraped knees I had bandaged, the birthdays I had planned, the college funds I had worked my ass off to build. All of it. A lie. My knees felt weak, but I forced myself to stay still, gripping the edge of the wall for support. My mind screamed at me to burst in, to grab Jack by the throat, to demand the truth from Ellie. But then I heard the final dagger. A familiar voice. One I had never expected to hear in this moment. My mother. Just don't be stupid, Ellie. Keep playing along. He's good to you. No need to ruin what we have. A fresh wave of nausea hit me. Even her. Even my own mother had known. She had looked me in the eyes, year after year, and let me live in ignorance. I clenched my jaw so hard it hurt. My body trembled, not from sadness, but from something far darker. A rage so deep it felt like fire in my veins. And yet, I didn't move. Not yet. I took a slow, shaky breath, forcing myself to step back, one foot after another, until I was outside again. The door closed behind me with barely a whisper, as if the house itself was ashamed of what lay inside. I walked to my car, gripping the roof for support. I wasn't just betrayed. I was played. They had taken everything from me, my love, my loyalty, my trust, and turned it into their own personal joke. They thought I was a fool. They thought I'd roll over, accept it, be the weak, clueless husband they had painted me as for nearly 2 decades. They had no idea what was coming. I inhaled deeply, steadying myself. Revenge wasn't just a fleeting thought. It wasn't anger clouding my judgment. It was a necessity. I wiped a hand over my face and let out a bitter chuckle. They wanted to make a fool out of me? They wanted to mock me behind my back? Fine. I'd make sure they regretted it every single day for the rest of their miserable lives. As I drove away, I glanced at the rearview mirror at the house that no longer felt like home. Enjoy your laughs while you can, because soon, I'd be the one laughing. The morning sun barely peeked over the horizon as I sat in my car, gripping the steering wheel. The rage from last night hadn't faded. If anything, it had intensified, turning into something sharper, cold, methodical vengeance. I wasn't a fool. Not anymore. Ellie and Jack had spent 18 years lying to me, using me, mocking me behind my back. My own mother had stood by and let it happen. They thought I'd just take it? They thought I was weak? No. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about obliteration. I pulled into the bank parking lot, stepping out of the car with a calm I didn't truly feel. As I walked inside, I gave the bank manager, Mr. Reynolds, a polite nod. He had handled my finances for years, trusted me, respected me. "Morning, Mr. Carter," he greeted. "What can I do for you today?" I smiled, setting my documents on his desk. "I'd like to transfer all my liquid assets into a private offshore account. Effective immediately." His eyes flickered with surprise, but he nodded. "That's a big move. Are you sure?" "Absolutely." He didn't ask any more questions. Within 20 minutes, my accounts were cleared, every single cent moved where only I could access it. Jack had lived off me like a parasite for years, letting me pay for vacations, dinners, even his goddamn car. Ellie had never worked a day in her life since we got married. Now, they had nothing. I made the call as I sat in the bank parking lot, fingers steady as I dialed my real estate agent. "Mr. Carter," Rachel answered cheerfully. "How can I help you today?" "I want the house sold," I said flatly. "Today. I don't care about the price. Just get rid of it." There was a pause. "That's unexpected. You sure you don't want to wait for a better offer?" "I don't have time to wait." She hesitated, but Rachel knew better than to question me. "All right, I'll get the paperwork started." Within hours, the house was gone. Sold at a massive loss, but I didn't care. The goal wasn't profit, it was destruction. I imagined Ellie waking up, stepping into our kitchen, pouring herself a cup of coffee like it was just another morning, only to find out she no longer had a home. I smiled. I sat at my office desk, opening my laptop. The legal documents were already prepared. I had erased those kids from my will. They weren't mine. They never had been. All those years, I had thought I was leaving them a future, securing their education, their inheritance. No more. I signed the papers, sending them straight to my lawyer. Those kids were Jack's problem now. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling slowly. Step by step, I was dismantling everything they had built on my back. I sat in my car outside the house, the final package in my lap. The divorce papers. On top, a simple note: "You two deserve each other. Enjoy being broke." The words were simple, yet devastating. I stepped out of the car, walked up to the front door, and slid the envelope inside. Then, without a glance back, I got into my car and drove away. I vanished. No messages. No explanations. Let them wake up to the wreckage. Let them burn. They searched. They called. They begged. But I was gone. Ellie's frantic calls flooded my voicemail for days. The first ones were laced with confusion. "Babe, what's going on?" "The bank is saying our accounts are empty." "Call me." Then anger. "What the hell did you do? Where's all the money? How could you do this to me?" Then desperation. "Please just talk to me. We can fix this. Don't do this to the kids. They need you." The kids. Jack's kids. My mother tried too. "Sweetheart, I know you're upset, but this is cruel. Ellie is devastated, and the kids are confused. You need to come home. Let's talk." Even Jack, the smug bastard, had the audacity to text me. "All right, man. I get it, you're pissed. Let's just be adults about this, yeah? No need to be dramatic." "Call me? Dramatic?" "No, Jack. You haven't seen dramatic yet." I watched from the shadows as their world crumbled. I didn't just disappear, I transformed. The first few months were the hardest. I left with nothing but the clothes on my back and a few suitcases stuffed with essentials. I cut all ties, changed my number, moved to a city where no one knew my name. Starting over wasn't easy, but I was a businessman, a strategist. I knew how to build. I invested. I learned. I played the game smarter, harder, more ruthlessly than ever before. By year 2, I was making serious money, more than I ever had when I was breaking my back for Jack's benefit. By year 4, I was wealthy, not just comfortable, powerful. By year 5, I was a ghost reborn as a king. No longer the trusting fool who believed in loyalty. No longer the husband who gave everything. I was sharper, colder, stronger, and I was ready. My return wasn't loud. It wasn't a grand announcement. No, it was a creeping storm, a slow, suffocating inevitability that would consume them piece by piece until they were drowning in the wreckage of their own choices. I had spent 5 years making sure they were stuck, that there was no escape, no way forward, no path back to the comfortable lives they had once taken for granted. Ellie was barely surviving. The woman who used to spend my money like water now lived in a crumbling apartment, working a low-end job that barely covered the bills. I had watched her struggle, watched her pride disintegrate as she was forced to bargain for second-hand furniture, cut coupons, and count pennies. Jack was a ghost of the man he once was. The business I had once built with my sweat and blood, gone. He had tried to start something on his own, but every connection, every investor, every avenue had mysteriously vanished. No bank would lend to him. No former associates would return his calls. My mother? Disowned and forgotten. She had tried to manipulate her way back into my life, spinning her usual web of guilt and fake concern. But I had cut her off just as coldly as she had betrayed me. I imagined she was still clinging to whatever scraps of a social life she could muster, complaining to her equally washed-up friends about how ungrateful her son had become. And me? I was untouchable, wealthier, smarter, more powerful than ever. And now, it was time to make them suffer. I stood across the street from her apartment, my hands resting in the pockets of my tailored suit. The building was an ugly, run-down structure with peeling paint and a flickering neon sign that read vacancies available above the office. She had gone from luxury vacations and designer handbags to water-stained ceilings and a busted air conditioner. I watched as she stepped outside, a plastic bag clutched in one hand, her shoulders hunched as if the weight of her failures had finally settled on her back. She looked tired, not just physically, but in that deep, soul-weary way that comes from knowing you lost everything and can never get it back. Good. I let her struggle with her keys, fumbling as she tried to unlock her car, a dented, rusted heap of metal that was a far cry from the Mercedes I once bought her. Her phone rang, and I knew exactly who it was before she even answered. "I told you, Jack, I don't have any money," she snapped, rubbing her temples. "I barely scraped together rent this month. Maybe if you actually got a job," a pause. Her face twisted with frustration, her fingers gripping the phone tighter. "I don't care if it's demeaning. Welcome to my world, asshole." I smirked. Oh, how the tables had turned. The woman who once looked down on others for struggling was now one of them. And she had no idea the man responsible for it all was standing right across the street, watching her unravel. Jack had hit rock bottom long before I returned, but I wanted to make sure he stayed there. I had already torched his business, left him financially ruined, and ensured every door he knocked on slammed in his face. But now, it was time to make sure he felt it, really felt it. I waited until he was alone, until I saw him slumped at the bar he now called home, drowning his failures in cheap whiskey. I slid into the stool next to him, my presence unnoticed at first. The bartender gave me a wary glance, recognizing that I didn't belong in this place. My suit alone cost more than what half the people in this bar made in a year. Jack didn't look up. His fingers gripped the glass in front of him, his knuckles white, his posture defeated. "Rough night?" I finally said. His head turned slowly, his bloodshot eyes taking a second too long to focus on me. And then, recognition. His entire body stiffened, his face draining of color. "You," he breathed. I smiled. "Me?" His mouth opened, then closed, as if his brain was struggling to form words. I let the silence stretch. Let him sit in the weight of my presence. You disappeared," he finally muttered, his voice hoarse. "I did." I took a sip of my drink. Had to take care of a few things. He swallowed hard, his Adam's apple bobbing. "You." His eyes darted down to my expensive watch, my polished cufflinks, the effortless confidence in my posture. He knew. He knew I had come back stronger than ever. "You did this," he finally said, his voice barely above a whisper. I leaned in slightly, my smile widening. "I did." A muscle in his jaw twitched. His fingers tightened around his glass, as if he wanted to break something. Maybe my face. Maybe just himself. "Why?" he choked out. I tilted my head. "Why not?" He exhaled sharply, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "You destroyed my life," he muttered. I swirled the amber liquid in my glass. Funny, I seem to remember you saying I was a loser for raising your kids, for paying your bills. Shouldn't you be sending me a thank you card? His face darkened, shame and rage battling in his expression. I gave him a pat on the back before standing up. Enjoy the drink, Jack. I tossed a crisp $100 bill onto the bar, just to remind him that I could afford to throw away money while he struggled to find change for the bus ride home. He didn't move, didn't say another word, just sat there, staring at the counter, realizing, too late, that he had picked a fight with the wrong man. Ellie was miserable. Jack was broken. My mother? Forgotten. But I wasn't done yet. Not even close. Because this wasn't just about ruining them. This was about making sure they never recovered. And I was just getting started. Ellie saw me first. She had just stepped out of her apartment, arms full of groceries, her face lined with exhaustion. It took a second for her brain to register what she was seeing. Then, her whole body stiffened. The color drained from her face. The plastic bag slipped from her grip, and a few dented cans rolled onto the cracked pavement. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. Jack, standing a few feet away, noticed her reaction and turned his head toward me. He froze. His already miserable expression darkened with pure, unfiltered shock. He looked like he had just seen a ghost. Ellie was the first to recover, though just barely. She stumbled forward, one hesitant step at a time. Oh my God! Her voice was a whisper, but it trembled with panic. You're back? Jack let out a strained chuckle, though his voice cracked. No way. No way. He blinked rapidly, as if I would disappear if he looked hard enough. You vanished, man. You were gone. I tilted my head, a smirk playing on my lips. Miss me? The moment those words left my mouth, their fragile control snapped. Ellie's hand shot out, reaching for me, desperation in her movements. Please, she gasped, her fingers barely grazing my sleeve. I need to explain. I pulled back smoothly, a look of mock amusement on my face. You? Begging. I let out a low chuckle. Now that's rich. She flinched, as if my words physically hit her. Jack tried to recover, straightening his posture like he wasn't just drowning in panic. He forced a smirk, one that didn't reach his eyes. Listen, man, he started, running a hand through his unkempt hair. We were young. We were stupid. I laughed. A cold, slow laugh that made his forced confidence crumble even further. Young and stupid? I repeated, as if tasting the words. Then I shook my head. No, Jack. You weren't stupid. You were just greedy. His jaw clenched. His nostrils flared. But he didn't argue. He knew I was right. Ellie stepped in again, her voice desperate. We made a mistake. She swallowed, blinking back tears. We didn't mean to hurt you like this. Please, just listen. I looked down at her, my expression unreadable. Then slowly, deliberately, I pried her fingers off my arm one by one. A mistake? I repeated softly. No, sweetheart. A mistake is forgetting to turn off the oven. A mistake is locking your keys in the car. I leaned in slightly, my voice dropping to a whisper. You built an entire life out of my pain. She let out a shuddering breath, her lip trembling. I turned to Jack. His shoulders were stiff, his eyes darting around as if looking for a way out. There wasn't one. I took a slow step closer, and he instinctively stepped back. I smirked. What's wrong, Jack? Not feeling so tough anymore? He swallowed hard but forced his voice to stay steady. All right, man. You had your fun. You got your revenge. What more do you want? I leaned in, my breath close to his ear. You call me a loser, I whispered. A fool. A clown. Jack barely breathed. I smiled. Funny, I continued, because I don't see a loser standing here. Just two broke, pathetic nobodies. Jack clenched his fists, his knuckles turning white. His pride was still there, barely, but he was nothing without power. Without money. Without me. Ellie, on the other hand, had no fight left. Her shoulders sagged, her face pale. She swallowed hard, her voice cracking. I can't do this anymore, she whispered. I can't keep living like this. Please tell me there's a way to fix this. I watched her break down, The woman who once mocked me, now pleading for my mercy. And I felt nothing. Not hate, not anger, just satisfaction. Fix this? I repeated, tilting my head. Tell me, Ellie, how do you fix 18 years of betrayal? She let out a soft sob. I don't know. She sniffled, wiping her tears. Just don't do this. Please. I know I don't deserve it, but I held up a hand, cutting her off. I don't hate you, Ellie, I said simply. Her eyes widened slightly, a flicker of hope. But I don't forgive you either. The hope died. I turned, my job here far from over. But before I left, I looked at Jack one last time. Enjoy rock bottom, Jack, I said, flashing him a smirk. I hear it's a long way up. And with that, I walked away. The sound of Ellie's quiet sobs followed me. But I didn't look back. Not once. Because I didn't just take their money. I didn't just leave them broke and pathetic. No, that would have been too easy. I made sure their suffering wasn't just financial. I wanted them to feel it in their bones. To live every second knowing that they were stuck in a nightmare of their own creation. One they couldn't wake up from. Because betrayal? It's a debt that's paid in pain. It started with Jack. I wasn't going to just leave him jobless. No, I made sure that no one would ever trust him again. The man who once mocked me, who laughed about living off my money, was about to find out what it meant to be truly worthless. I leaked everything. His fraud, his shady business deals, the loans he never intended to pay back, the investors he scammed. I made sure every email, every document, every shady deal he ever made found its way to the right hands. Banks blacklisted him. Companies put him on their do-not-hire lists. His credit? Destroyed. His name was dragged through the mud. Every business contact he once had turning their backs on him. The same men who used to shake his hand now treated him like he was a disease. I watched from a distance when he walked into an office one last time, begging for a job at the company where he once boasted about being irreplaceable. The manager, a man who had once admired him, barely looked up from his desk. Sorry, Jack, he said, flipping through a file. We don't have anything for you. Jack leaned forward, desperate. Come on, man. I just need something to get back on my feet. The manager sighed, closing the folder. You don't get it, do you? He shook his head. You're finished. No one in this industry will touch you. Jack's fingers curled into fists. This is bullshit, he hissed. I can make this right. The manager leaned back, his gaze cold. You did this to yourself. Jack's face crumpled, and I stood outside the glass windows, watching as the man who once stole my life had his own shattered beyond repair. Ellie had built her life on appearances. She loved the admiration, the envy, the way people looked up to her. So I made sure that was the first thing I took away. It started small, a few rumors, whispers in the right ears. Did you hear about Ellie? Yeah, turns out she was cheating for years. With her husband's best friend. And the kids? Not even his. She played him, lied to him, then got left with nothing. It spread like wildfire. Women she used to look down on now laughed behind her back. Men she once flirted with wouldn't give her a second glance. She had no one left to manipulate. Then, I hit her where it hurt most, her job. She had finally scraped together something, a low-paying position at an office. I made sure her boss got an anonymous tip about her past fraud. A little hint that she wasn't trustworthy. 1 week later, she was fired. I watched from across the street as she stormed out of the building, furious, screaming into her phone. This isn't fair, she snapped. You can't just know. I didn't lie on my resume. She stopped, listening to whatever response she got. Then, her face fell. Her hand shook as she lowered the phone. She knew. She knew exactly who had done this. Her eyes darted around wildly, searching for me. She wouldn't find me. Not yet. Because I wasn't done watching her crumble. My mother had always believed she was untouchable. She had spent years controlling me, molding me, twisting situations in her favor. And she thought she would get away with her betrayal too. She thought I'd come back, eventually, that I'd forgive her, that I'd fall for her manipulations just like I used to. She was wrong. I let her rot in her loneliness. The family she betrayed me for? They wanted nothing to do with her. The community she had once charmed? They turned their backs on her. She had no one left. No support. No love. No son. And that was the worst punishment I could have given her. Ellie, Jack, my mother, every bridge, burned, every door, closed. They were trapped, drowning in the consequences of their own choices. And the best part? Watching them fall apart. Jack started drinking. Ellie started begging. My mother? She stopped calling, because they finally understood there was no coming back from this. I had won. In them, they were nothing, just shadows of the people they once were. Exactly where they belonged. Ellie was on her knees. She clung to my legs like a drowning woman reaching for a life raft, but there was nothing left to save her. Her face was streaked with tears, her breath hitching between desperate sobs. Please, she whimpered, her fingers digging into my pants. Just give me another chance. Her voice was broken, raw, pathetic. I looked down at her, tilting my head. This was the same woman who had laughed at my trust. The same woman who had mocked me, lied to me, and stole from me. Now, she was reduced to nothing but a weeping mess. I sighed, nudging her off with my foot like she was nothing more than dirt on my shoe. Ellie collapsed onto the cold floor, her shoulders shaking. I crouched down beside her, smirking. What's the matter, Ellie? I asked, my tone dripping with mock sympathy. Not as fun when you're the one on the ground. Huh? Her lip trembled as she looked up at me, wide-eyed and broken. I know I messed up, she stammered, her voice shaking. I was stupid. I was selfish. But I still love you. I let out a sharp laugh. Love? I echoed. Ellie, you wouldn't know love if it slapped you in the face. She flinched, her body jerking like she had just been physically hit. Love is loyalty. Love is respect. I leaned in closer, my voice dropping to a whisper. And you? You never had that. She shook her head rapidly, grabbing at my hand. I do. I swear I do. I ripped my arm away. You love my money, I spat. You love the lifestyle I gave you. You love the stability. But me, I chuckled darkly. You loved using me. Ellie let out a strangled sob. I was scared, she whispered, voice barely audible. Jack made me feel wanted, I scoffed. Wanted? My jaw clenched. You had a husband who worked his ass off for you, who trusted you, who built a life for you, and you threw it all away for what? I sneered. Some cheap thrill? She let out a soft cry, her head bowing. Please, she choked out. Please, just give me something. I stood up. I already did. Ellie's breath hitched as she looked up at me in confusion. I smirked. I gave you what you deserved. Jack was standing a few feet away, his whole body rigid. Unlike Ellie, he wasn't begging. Not yet. But I saw it, the flicker of fear in his eyes, the slight shake in his fingers, the way his throat bobbed as he swallowed back his panic. All right, man, he finally said, forcing a chuckle. You got your revenge. You took everything. What more do you want? I turned to face him, my expression unreadable. What more do I want? I repeated slowly. Jack tensed. I stepped forward, closing the distance between us, watching as he instinctively stepped back. His jaw clenched, his hands balling into fists, trying so hard to keep up the tough act. I smiled. Jack, I said smoothly. Do you remember what you said? He blinked, confused. I took another step forward. Bro has no clue I'm the real dad. Jack flinched. I tilted my head. You laughed about it. Made jokes. Even called me a loser. His eyes darted away, guilt flashing across his face. I cut him off. You were so proud of what you did. I let out a soft chuckle. So tell me, Jack, how does it feel now? His breath quickened. How does it feel knowing you've lost everything? He inhaled sharply through his nose, gripping his fists tighter. Then, in a last-ditch effort, he sneered. You think you won? He scoffed, trying to fake his confidence. So what? You got rich. You destroyed our lives. But at the end of the day, you're still just a bitter, pathetic bastard who couldn't keep his wife. I smiled. Oh, he was trying so hard to hold on to the last shreds of his ego. So I decided to rip it away completely. I leaned in, lowering my voice. Tell me, Jack, I whispered. What's worse? Losing a wife? My smirk widened. Or raising another man's kids without even knowing? His whole body stiffened. I saw it in his eyes, the way his bravado shattered in an instant. For a brief second, he looked as weak and broken as Ellie. Then, just as quickly, his expression twisted in rage. "You son of a—" He lunged at me, swinging. I sidestepped effortlessly, watching as he stumbled forward. Pathetic. "Careful, Jack," I warned, adjusting my sleeve. "Wouldn't want to end up with more bruises than just your ego." Jack clenched his teeth, his breath coming out ragged. He wanted to fight. He wanted to hurt me. But he knew he had already lost. So I let out a low chuckle, giving him a slow, almost pitying look. "You used to be somebody," I mused. "Now," I shrugged. "Now, you're just another nobody." Jack's nostrils flared, his hands still curled into useless fists. I turned my back on him, walking away. Ellie was still sobbing on the ground. Jack was still seething. And me? I had never felt more satisfied. They had begged. They had crumbled. And now they had nothing. Exactly like they deserved. The final blow had to be perfect. Not just brutal. I had watched them crumble. I had watched Ellie sob, Jack shake with rage, and my mother retreat in a silent disgrace. But it wasn't enough. Not yet. They needed to feel it deep in their bones, the kind of pain that festers, that lingers for a lifetime. So, I decided to leave them with one last message. It was almost too easy. I stood in front of my new mansion, the sun casting a golden glow on the sleek, modern architecture behind me. A house so grand it made the one I had shared with Ellie look like a rundown shack. And beside me, my new fiancée, a woman who was everything Ellie wasn't. Smart, loyal, beautiful, but most importantly, faithful. She wrapped her arms around me, her eyes filled with admiration, the kind Ellie had never truly given me. I snapped the picture. Then, I added a single word. "Enjoy." And I sent it. To Ellie. To Jack. To my so-called mother. Then I waited. It didn't take long. Ellie called me first. The phone buzzed relentlessly, her desperation bleeding through the screen. 5 missed calls. Then 10. Then 20. I let them ring. Then a text. "Ellie, please talk to me." I smirked, watching the messages flood in. "Ellie, I made a mistake." "Ellie, I was stupid. I was selfish." "Ellie, I should have chosen you." "Ellie, you were the best thing that ever happened to me." A few months ago, maybe even a few years ago, those words might have meant something. Now, they were nothing more than the cries of a woman who had lost everything. Then another message came in. "Ellie, is she better than me?" I actually laughed. She was begging now, grasping at anything. She wanted to believe I still thought about her, that I still wanted her. I took my time before responding. Finally, I typed back. In every way, I saw the little typing bubble appear instantly. "Ellie, I can be better. Just give me a chance. One chance." I shook my head. Pathetic. I didn't reply, but I could picture it. Ellie, sitting alone in that tiny, miserable apartment. No money, no family, no love. Just her and her regrets. And the best part? That feeling would never leave her. Jack wasn't like Ellie. He didn't beg. He exploded. The moment he got the picture, my phone lit up with a call. I answered this one, just for fun. "What the F?" he snapped, his voice seething with rage. "Miss me?" I said smoothly, already knowing the answer. "You think this is funny?" he spat. I sighed, almost bored. "Oh, Jack, you were always a bit slow, weren't you?" "Go to hell," he growled. "You think you're some kind of big shot now? Just 'cause you got a new chick and a fancy house?" I smirked. "No, Jack. I know I'm a big shot because I took everything from you, and you still can't stop thinking about me." His breathing grew heavy. I could hear the fury boiling under his skin. "You ruined my life," he finally muttered. I let out a soft laugh. "Oh no, Jack. You ruined your life. I just made sure you felt the consequences." He let out a sharp breath. "You think you won?" he snarled. I tilted my head, glancing at my fiancée, who was watching me with curiosity, sipping a glass of wine. "Oh, Jack," I said, smiling. "I didn't just win. I dominated." Then, before he could respond, I hung up, because Jack didn't deserve the last word. The last person to receive the picture was my mother. Unlike Ellie and Jack, she didn't text. She didn't call. She just stayed silent. But I knew she had seen it. And that was enough, because silence was its own kind of suffering. She had lost her son. She had betrayed her own blood. And now, she was alone, forgotten, exactly where she belonged. As I set my phone down, I felt a warmth wrap around my shoulders. My fiancée leaned into me, resting her head on my chest. "Everything all right?" she asked softly. I exhaled, wrapping an arm around her waist, pulling her closer. "Yeah," I murmured, pressing a kiss to her forehead. Because for the first time in years, it truly was. I had done what they never expected. I had walked away. I had rebuilt myself. And most importantly, I had moved on. Ellie, Jack, my mother, they would spend the rest of their lives trapped in the mess they created. Me? I had a new life. A better life. And that was the greatest revenge of all. The night air was cool against my skin as I stepped onto the balcony of my new home. Below me, the city stretched endlessly, glowing with the promise of new beginnings. It was a stark contrast to the darkness I had once lived in, the suffocating weight of betrayal, the sting of deception. Now, that world no longer existed. Ellie, Jack, my mother, they were relics of a past life, a life I had burned to the ground. And I felt nothing, no guilt, no regret, just peace. I leaned against the railing, sipping from a glass of aged whiskey, the rich burn sliding down my throat. The sound of laughter drifted from inside, where my fiancée was chatting with guests. Her voice was soft, warm, the kind of voice that didn't carry lies. Not like Ellie's. The past tried to claw its way into my mind, but I shut it out. I wouldn't waste another second on them. I had won, and it was time to enjoy my victory. As if on cue, my fiancée, Emma, stepped outside, wrapping her arms around me from behind. "You're quiet," she murmured, resting her chin on my shoulder. I smirked, placing my hand over hers. "Just thinking about." I turned to face her, taking in her bright green eyes, the way they held trust, something I had never truly known before. About how different life is now. Her gaze softened. "Good different?" I cupped her face, running my thumb along her cheek. "The best kind?" She smiled, pressing a gentle kiss to my lips. "Then stop thinking so much and come back inside. Everyone's asking for you." I chuckled, setting my glass down. "You go ahead. I'll be there in a minute." She hesitated, studying me for a moment before nodding. "Don't keep me waiting too long," she teased before disappearing back inside. I watched her go, then pulled my phone from my pocket. There was one last thing I had to do. I scrolled through my contacts until I found her name. Ellie. For years, I had let her existence be nothing more than a distant memory. But tonight, I would bury her once and for all. I hit the call button. It rang. Once, twice, 3 times. Then, a tired, broken voice answered. "Hello." I almost didn't recognize her. There was no arrogance, no entitlement, just defeat. "Ellie," I said smoothly. Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Oh my God, I could picture her now, probably in that rundown apartment, sitting in the dark, clutching the phone like it was a lifeline. You actually called me?" she whispered, her voice cracking. "Figured I'd check in," I said casually, swirling the last of my whiskey. "See how life's treating you." A choke laugh. "You already know." I smirked. "Oh, I do. But I want to hear you say it." She exhaled shakily. It's been hard." "Good." "Jack left," she admitted. "He blamed me for everything. He couldn't handle," her voice wavered. "He just walked out. I lost the apartment we had together. And then my mom died." I raised an eyebrow. "The same mother who told you to keep playing me?" A bitter silence. "She was still my mother," Ellie whispered. I scoffed. "Yeah? Well, she wasn't much of one to me." She let out a shaky breath. "I deserve that." "Damn right you do." Another pause. Then, "Do you ever think about us?" I almost laughed. "Us?" I echoed. "Ellie, there was no us. There was me, the idiot working himself to the bone. And there was you screwing my best friend behind my back." She let out a small sob. "I loved you, you know." I sighed. "No, Ellie. You love what I gave you." She didn't respond. "You know what the funny part is?" I continued. "I really did love you. I would have done anything for you. But you," I shook my head. You threw it all away for a loser who couldn't even provide for you. A ragged breath. I made a mistake. I chuckled darkly. Yeah, the biggest mistake of your life. Silence stretched between us. Then a whisper. Is she better than me? There it was. The real reason for her call. I let a slow, cruel smirk cross my lips. In every possible way. She let out a broken sob. And that was it. That was the closure I needed. I exhaled, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. Goodbye, Ellie. I hung up, blocked her number, deleted the contact. And just like that, she was nothing to me. I slid my phone back into my pocket and turned toward the house, where warm laughter and music spilled from inside. A real home, a real future. Emma appeared in the doorway, smiling. You coming? I walked over, pulling her into my arms. Wouldn't miss it for the world. She looked up at me, her expression full of trust, love, and everything Ellie had never given me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't someone's fool. I wasn't trapped in someone else's lie. I was free, and I would never look back. Not again. Not ever.